I got a call on late Sunday afternoon. Actually, it was a text. It said, SOS, my tree is splitting, please save my tree. And then she sent me a picture of her front yard Chinese pistache that had one side of it, the limbs split and tore the bark. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going to get into. I couldn't make it there, so I advised the homeowner, the husband, to put a prop underneath the tree, put a 2x4, keep it from ripping all the way down, and do the best you can. So didn't expect a whole lot, but I got out there yesterday morning and I'll show you what I encountered. But kind of the purpose of this video is sometimes you run into a dilemma. You run into a situation where you think, should you even bother? Should you even try to save a tree that splits? And if you look back at some of my other videos, you'll see another video where I pulled a pistache tree, another pistache, back together. And you have to ask yourself the reasons why did it split in the first place. Well, this particular tree was loaded with the little pistache berries, and they were very, very heavy. We did have some pretty significant wind the other night, and I'm sure that's what caused the split to happen. But in this case, the split was already there, and it had been there for a long time. It just nobody noticed it, and so the movement of the wind just exacerbated it and pulled the whole thing down. So anyway, I went over there, I looked at it, and I decided to do the best I could to try to save it, and I'll show you the story. So I think you'll like this. Well, this is what I came into when I showed up. You had a couple of ladders in here and a table. Don't you guys just hate it when you've got a neighbor's yappy dog that just barks incessantly all day long? It drove me nuts. Anyway, there was so much weight on this limb, and the split was worse than the photograph that she sent me. It looked worse because I got up close to it. And you can see there was some decay. It had split a long time ago. It was black on both sides, and it had been overnight, so the wood had dried out a bit. I did tell them to wet the wood down a little bit just to keep the wood as flexible as possible, but it wasn't wet when I got there in the morning. So, what do? Should I even try to save this tree? Should I tell them? Well, I did. So the first thing I had to do was rig this up to the branch. I put a couple of ropes centered, and I used the Jumar as a way of holding it so that when I got underneath it, I could push up, and I asked the homeowner to pull the rope through. So it was actually tied on the top and the bottom of the Jumar through a carabiner down to a balance point here. And so I got underneath the branch after I had taken all the brush off. And I took a significant amount of brush off, and I was able to get it back up. In the end, I did use the bucket to pull it back up and pull it over from the top side and get it as close as I could. And then I got the come-along up there after it was up high enough to pull it back together, and then I put a rope around it and held it all tight that way. And I need to put some kind of physical support, so I decided on a great big lag screw. So I got about a 6-inch lag screw, and I'll show you that in a second here. But the fibers of this had already bent pretty good. And that's where I decided to put the lag screw. I didn't want to put it at the very top because there was kind of a bulge of wood there, and I wanted to catch as much of the wood on the backside as I possibly could. It pulled it in a bit, but not quite well enough because there was a lot of broken fibers on the inside that were sticking out. I'm afraid that this tree is going to have kind of an opening split on it for the rest of his life, and I don't know how long it's going to last. So this is what it looked like. You'll see I did take a lot of weight off of the branch that had split, but I decided that this tree is forever going to have to be kept small. That's how much brush I took off of just that one limb that split before I pulled it back up. It doesn't look half bad. I left enough up there so it's reasonably presentable. But it was a mess. It really was a mess. I talked with people about it, told them that we're going to have to keep this tree small for the rest of its life. And this was the first step. I'm not even sure I made it small enough. It's interesting. There's 2 rose plants in front of this client's house, and her name is Rosa, and a very nice lady. And I always know her house when I go by because she's got these 2 red roses in the front yard that, oh, there's Rosa's house. Anyway, long and short of it is I still have to do a little bit more involvement of pulling it together. So I left this job and I went down the street, and there was some power line pruning. And I tell you, these power line guys, they have not got a clue. There's really no excuse for the way they make these cuts. That one's not horrible, but the one up above, I mean, they just kind of slashed at it. They don't understand the idea of, the branch bark collar, and so often they slip with a chainsaw and make these uppercuts, and there just wasn't anything left of the tree.